It's Candace here from Beacon Hill Books. Again, apologize for the lighting. When you have time to tape, you just have to video and take advantage of it. I just wanted to give a quick catch up as we're about midway of February of all of the books that I have read in February or am currently reading. The first book that I finished was Icebound, One Woman's Incredible Battle for Survival at the South Pole by Jerri Nielson, and also actually with Marianne Vollers. This was published, I believe, in like 2001, and it is about Jerri Nielson, who is a doctor, and she kind of gets to a part in her life where she is a doctor, but she's gone through a divorce, and her husband and kids are not talking to her anymore. She's kind of looking for some big change, and she applies to be the doctor in the South Pole. And that requires you to basically stay there for one whole year, and part of the time you are basically immersed in darkness and freezing cold temperatures where you cannot leave because there's no way that aircraft can come get you. And about for half of the book, it talks about her getting acclimated to being down there. It shows a lot of correspondence between her and her family and her and the other Polies, which are what they call the South people that winter over at Antarctica. And then we get to about halfway and we find out that Jerri actually believes she has breast cancer and what that means, because like I said, she can't really do much in terms of getting help, and the equipment that they have in Antarctica, they were building a new station for the US at the time. It was very old. And she has some pictures in here, like here's one of her trying to get some of her friends to help her when they were trying to do a biopsy. And it was amazing in many ways. One, just learning about living at the South Pole. I've read some historical fiction accounts of them, but it wasn't current day. And how people live in a station down there, and also about her going through the process of finding out she has breast cancer, what that means in terms of when you think that you're going to die, and she has to really lean on her friends and family, especially the family that she makes being down there. It's a very inspiring book. I think I ended up giving this about 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was for Black History Month, and it's also the Read Harder book for February, and that is White Rage, The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide by Carol Andersen. This book ended up being way smaller than I thought because half of it is actually notations in the back of facts, and there are a lot of facts in this book and a lot of difficult facts. It really starts after the Civil War, and it was really hard to read in a lot of ways, as these books about difficult conversations are. And Andersen shows that she calls it white rage because she feels that it's not visible violence, it's people that are trying to hold back African Americans through things like rules and regulations, courts, legislature, government, bureaucracy, things like that. And she often is telling you how the poor white person as well always thinks, what about me, that the African American is getting treated better than they are. It explains a lot about how the government has put in place laws to try and prevent African Americans from getting education, which is one really, really important fact to help better their lives, but really, as Andersen says, the country's life. We as a whole in the country have been held back because we are not allowing our citizens to go to their fullest, and we have allowed other countries to therefore take, precedence to us in terms of intelligence and things like that. I was really surprised about a lot of things. I have one very vivid instance of horrible violence that was done to a mother pregnant with, I believe, twins that I cannot get out of my mind. Talking about the voter ID requirements, which came up in our last election, and Jim Crow laws. I just felt kind of sad that I didn't know many of those things. Not that I needed to know like the data specifics. And I've read about some of this white rage in like the March series a little bit by John Lewis, but that I didn't know some of the other history about it, and I don't know where I would have learned it. It just makes me think, and I think that should be its purpose. It's a hard read, so it's just one of those books that I think it's good to read and think about. The next book I read, actually listened to an audio, was The Madwoman Upstairs by Catherine Lowell, and this was a fun little book, great on audio because the main character is very snarky and snippy and just sometimes a little bit overconfident, and she is a descendant of the Bronte family, and through her father, and her father had recently passed away, and a divorced father, so she grew up mostly with him and that sort of notoriety of being a Whipple. A Whipple is the surname of their particular family. And so she ends up leaving Boston to go to school in the UK and ends up in this precarious situation where she's getting these old books that were her father's sent to her, and obviously he's passed away. So she's trying to figure out where they're coming from and kind of resolve dealing with her famous relatives, a little bit of a romance. It was enjoyable. I think I would love to read this book as not an audio down the road, but I really have to finish more of the Bronte books because I think it would be even better if you've read more of them. So that makes me feel pretty bad that I need to do that. I also finished 2 graphic novels. One is called Monet, The Itinerant of Life by Salva Rubio. This was a fantastic graphic novel I found on Hoopla it starts off with Monet being very old and actually having to go through cataract surgery back in the day, which is really scary. But he's very nervous that he won't see light, and he shows how all his life, all he's wanted to do is paint, and definitely with light in his particular way. It was fascinating to learn about his life, the movement, impressionists, and just his character as well. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I also read, available on NetGalley, Herding Cats by Sarah Andersen. This is the 3rd in Sarah Scribbles, which you guys, I keep talking about it, so I'm not going to spend more time about it. But this comes out on March 27th, and it's fantastic. I really loved it. Again, the comics are like point right on for me. I do feel like women might enjoy it slightly more than men just because it gives like more of a female perspective, like a little bit of chick-lit humor here and there. But I loved the ending too, where she kind of breaks from her usual just comic strip pictures to have a little bit of a story about being a creator in this age where you're putting yourself out there on the internet and there's a lot of haters, and it's really actually preventing young people from doing things where they have this great opportunity to create and put their work out in front of a lot of people. She stresses that you just need to create and not worry about the other things, as hard as that is. And I really loved that message. I'm currently reading a few books. One I'm buddy reading with April from Getting Hugga With It, and I'm It's Dragon Springs by Janie Chang. She's listening to it via audio. I read Three Souls by Janie Chang last year and loved it. And I have to say, I'm loving this book as well. This is a historical fiction and has a lot of similar themes as to Three Souls, but it has actually a dash of magical realism in it. If you can see here, there's a little fox, and there's sort of a fox animal spirit that lives in the courtyard by where they all live on Dragon Spring Roads, which to my little fantastical heart's delight just snags me every time. So I'm really enjoying this, and I'll talk about it when I finish this book. I'm reading The Private Lives of the Tudors, Uncovering the Secrets of Britain's Greatest Dynasty by Tracy Borman. This is actually a pick for multiple book clubs. I'm a part of the Blast from the Past book club, link it below, and I really liked it. I mean, I do primarily read Tudor history, so especially like the Henry VIII chapters, I'm thinking, is there anything new I'm going to find here? But I did. And I really liked the part about Henry VII because I haven't read a ton about him. I'm almost done with that because I'm at Elizabeth's chapters, so I'll talk about that a little bit more when I finish. I'm also reading In the Time of Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. This is the Read Around the World Book Club pick for this month, and this is a heartbreaking book about the Dominican Republic in the early 20th century when El Jefe was in charge, and just a political uprising from a handful of very influential sisters. It's told from each of the sisters' perspectives, and I really love it. Again, it's hard conversations, but necessary conversations. And I've been reading Isabella, the Warrior Queen, which is a nonfiction book by Kristen Downey. I'm probably a little over halfway done with that. It's been great getting to learn more about Isabella, and really her as a queen was way more independent than I had thought, especially at that time with being married to Ferdinand. It's been wonderful getting to know her more and learn about her history, so I think by the next time I do a wrap-up I'll have that book finished. So there you have it. Let me know if you've read any of these books or have any books like it that you could share that I would like, and I hope that everybody's February is going well. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.